Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am Dr. Afrinesh Amanat, and this lecture is continuation of the previous topic of myocardial infarction. It is important because mostly you get a short essay question from this topic. This topic is also asked in OSPE as well as in multiple choice questions. Therefore, listen to this topic carefully. If you get bored, pause the video for a few minutes and then continue again. Transmural infarcts. They involve full thickness of the ventricle and they are caused by occlusion of epicardial vessels through a combination of chronic atherosclerosis and acute thrombosis. They yield ST segment elevation on ECG. Other changes which are produced are negative Q waves with loss of R wave amplitude. The transmural infarcts are therefore also known as ST segment elevated MIs. You will study the ECG changes in medicine. This is the P wave, this is the Q, R, and S complex, and then comes the T wave. You can appreciate this ST segment. It is situated above the baseline. This is known as ST segment elevation. This is the baseline, and here you can appreciate the ST segment is situated above it. This is ST segment elevated MI. Subendocardial infarcts are limited to the inner third of myocardium. They do not produce ST segment elevation or Q waves on ECG tracings. Therefore, they are also known as non-ST segment elevated MIs. They can also produce ST segment depression or T wave abnormalities. Microscopic infarcts, they occur in the setting of small vessel occlusion and they may not show any diagnostic ECG changes. They occur in the setting of vasculitis, embolization of valve vegetations or vessel spasm. Now we will discuss in detail the gross and microscopic picture of myocardial infarction. All the transmural infarcts which involve 50% or more of the ventricular thickness, they also affect portion of the left ventricle and or interventricular septum. 15 to 30% of the MIs involve posterior or posterolateral wall as well as the right ventricle. Isolated right ventricular infarcts occur in 1 to 3% of the cases. The gross changes become visible after 12 hours. The infarcts more than 3 hours old can be visualized by using a stain known as triphenyl tetrazolium chloride. It is a substrate for lactate dehydrogenase. The infarcted area will appear pale or unstained. The reason being this enzyme is depleted in the area of ischemic necrosis. It leaks out of the damaged cell. Therefore, the infarcted area appears pale. The old scars, they appear white and glistening. This is the cross section of the heart. You can appreciate the myocardial infarction has occurred in the posterolateral area and there is lack of triphenyl tetrazolium chloride staining in the area of necrosis as indicated by this arrow. The anterior scar arrowhead indicative of remote infarction, this one, and the area shown by the asterisk, this shows the myocardial hemorrhage at the right edge of the infarct. This table is very important. The coagulative necrosis, the gross changes become visible after 4 to 12 hours. There is beginning of coagulative necrosis in 12 to 24 hours. The coagulative necrosis continues. There is hypereosinophilic appearance of myocytes, marginal contraction band necrosis. We will discuss this in detail in the next slides. And in 1 to 3 days, interstitial infiltrate of neutrophils begins to appear. Then in 3 to 7 days, there is phagocytosis of the dead cells by macrophages, as well as deposition of granulation tissue starts. By 12 to 24 hours, the infarct appears as red-blue discoloration caused by the stagnant blood. After that, the infarct becomes soft yellow and tan. By 10 to 14 days, they are rimmed by hyperemic granulation tissue. The coagulative necrosis becomes detectable within 4 to 12 hours. The wavy fibers can be present at the edges of the infarct, and these fibers they reflect stretching and buckling of the non-contractile dead fibers. Sublethal ischemia produces myocyte vacuolization. These myocytes are viable, they contract poorly. The acute inflammatory infiltrate appears 1 to 3 days after MI, and it is followed by the wave of macrophages, which appear 5 to 10 days after MI. You're already familiar with the role of macrophages, that they engulf the necrotic material. And the granulation tissue, it begins to develop 1 to 2 weeks after MI. And once the MI is healed completely, you cannot predict its age. This diagram is very important. It has beautifully explained all the microscopic changes. In A, you can appreciate on the right side this is normal myocardium, and on the left side you can appreciate the myo fibers have become wavy. There is accumulation of edema fluid. In B, you can appreciate dense neutrophilic infiltrate has begun to appear. In C, you can appreciate the presence of the macrophages have started to phagocytose the debris. And in D, you will appreciate formation of granulation tissue. Granulation tissue is deposition of connective tissue along with the formation of new vessels. And the new vessels are appreciated by accumulation of blood in endothelial lined spaces. And in D, you can appreciate the collagenous tissue by this bluish areas. This is basically stained by a special stain known as Mason's trichome stain, and it stains collagen blue in color. And the residual cardiac muscle fibers are also present, which are shown in the pink stain. Now the infarct modification by reperfusion, it can also occur. The therapeutic goal in MI is restoration of tissue perfusion, which is achieved by thrombolysis, either by tissue plasminogen activator, by angioplasty, or coronary artery bypass graft. Reperfusion injury. It is also important to understand what is reperfusion injury. The restoration of blood flow to the ischemic tissue can incite local tissue damage. This is known as reperfusion injury. There are certain factors. One is mitochondrial dysfunction. Ischemia alters the membrane permeability of the mitochondria as well as of the myocyte, and it allows proteins to move in the mitochondria. The result is swelling and rupture of the outer membrane. The contents of mitochondria are released, and you're familiar that this process promotes apoptosis. There is also increased intracellular accumulation of calcium within the myocytes. This promotes, after reperfusion, the contraction of myofibrils is augmented and uncontrolled, causing cytoskeletal damage and cell death. After reperfusion, free radicals like superoxide aniline are accumulated, and they also damage the myocytes. Other contributing factors are leukocyte aggregation, which may occlude the microvasculature, platelet, and complement activation. Now, the infarcts that are produced by reperfusion injury are hemorrhagic ones because of the vascular injury and leakiness. On microscopy, there is appearance of contraction band necrosis. They are intensely eosinophilic bands of hypercontracted sarcomeres, and they are produced as a result of influx of calcium across the plasma membranes, and which heightens the actin myosin interactions. In the absence of ATP, the sarcomeres cannot relax, and they get stuck in a tetanic state. On the left side, you can appreciate the gross appearance of the heart The transverse heart slice is stained with triphenyl tetrazolium chloride, and you can appreciate a large anterior wall myocardial infarction, and it appears to be hemorrhagic because of bleeding from the damaged vessels. On the right side, you can appreciate the presence of hemorrhage and contraction band necrosis. The contraction band necrosis is hyper eosinophilic myocytes. You are already familiar with the clinical features of MI. There is severe crushing substernal chest pain that lasts several minutes to hours, not relieved by rest or nitroglycerin. In 10 to 15% of the cases, MI produces no signs and symptoms or atypical ones, and such silent infarcts are more common in patients with diabetes mellitus. The pulse will be rapid and weak. Dyspnea can occur due to pulmonary congestion. Even the patient can develop cardiogenic shock. ECG changes we have already discussed can be Q waves, ST segment changes, T wave inversions. Lab diagnosis is important because you can be given a short essay question on the lab diagnosis of MI. Myoglobin, cardiac troponins, creatine kinase, particularly the CKMB, and lactate dehydrogenase. These markers are used in the laboratory for diagnosis. The troponins and CKMB have higher specificity and sensitivity. CKMB isoform. It begins to rise within 2 to 4 hours, peaks at 24 to 48 hours, but it returns to normal within 72 hours. Troponins normally are not found in the circulation, but after MI they are detectable. Within 2 to 4 hours they become detectable, peak at 42 hours, and they can remain elevated for 7 to 10 days. This can be asked in multiple choice question. Now, what are the consequences and complications of myocardial infarction? Either the patient can develop contractile dysfunction. If left ventricle is damaged in particular, the patient can undergo cardiogenic shock. If papillary muscle dysfunction occurs, it can lead to mitral regurg or other functional changes. Right ventricular infarction occurs in 1 to 3% of the cases. Myocardial rupture, it occurs in 1 to 5% of the cases, and it most commonly occurs within 3 to 7 days after infarction. And the risk for the free wall rupture is more in first MI. In patients more than 60 years, in anterior or lateral wall infarcts, in females, and in those with lack of left ventricular hypertrophy. The risk of arrhythmias is greatest in the first hour and it declines thereafter. Patient can also develop pericarditis, fibrinohemorrhagic pericarditis. It occurs 2 to 3 days. This can be asked in multiple choice question, and gradually it can resolve over the next few days. There is accumulation of hemorrhage or even fluid between the pericardial spaces. It can organize to form adhesions, and the patient is said to develop constrictive pericarditis. Chamber dilation can also occur. Mural thrombus, ventricular aneurysm, and progressive heart failure are some of the other complications. In A, you can appreciate myocardial rupture indicated by this arrow. There is rupture of interventricular septum in B. In C, there is papillary muscle rupture. In D, there is accumulation of fluid in the pericardial space and it appears to be of hemorrhagic nature. In E, you can appreciate there is thinning of myocardium and expansion of apical infarct with wall stretching and mural thrombus. And in F, you can appreciate large apical left ventricular aneurysm. Patients with the anterior transmural MIs are at greater risk of wall rupture and aneurysm formation, while the patients with posterior transmural infarcts are likely to have conduction blocks and right ventricular involvement or both. Ventricular remodeling is ongoing hypertrophy and dilation on one hand, and scarring and thinning of the infarcted zone on the other hand, and these changes are collectively termed as ventricular remodeling. ATP depletion begins within seconds. The loss of contractility occurs in less than 2 minutes. ATP is reduced to 50% of the normal in 10 minutes and to 10% of the normal in 40 minutes. The time period for irreversible injury is 20 to 40 minutes, and this table is important because it can be asked in multiple choice questions. The rest of the slides are just the repetition of the microscopic changes we have already studied. Thank you, class.